Indeed, we find inspiration in our history and believe that because of our own experiences, Latter-day Saints have a special duty to speak on behalf of religious liberty for all groups.
Hi, I'm John Thomas. I'm an editor of Latter-day Saints and Religious Liberty, Historical and Global Perspectives, which is a new book publishing some of the presentations and research that came out of the 2022 Church History Symposium on religious freedom and the rule of law around the world. For most of my career, I've taught religious education at BYU, Idaho. Before I did that, however, I also taught political science for a few years at other universities. And so when I saw the call for papers in 2022 about this conference, I was pretty excited. It essentially is based around the 11th and 12th Articles of Faith, which have sometimes come into contact with each other. On the one hand, we claim the privilege to worship God according to our conscience and allow all others that same privilege. On the other hand, we believe in upholding law and sustaining the governments who enforce human law in the countries where we live. Those two commitments live at peace most of the time, but sometimes they come into conflict, and that makes for very interesting history. I hope readers will appreciate as they study this book how accurate it is to say, as Elder Garrett Gong did in a keynote at the conference, that our commitment to religious freedom is not simply current, American, or political. It's rooted much more deeply in our doctrine and in our history. We have learned important lessons about it in the United States, for sure, but also in our efforts to establish the church and share the gospel in many countries around the world. And it really does reflect something Latter-day Saints see about their relationship to God, that all people are His children, that He, though knowing all truth, has allowed us to make use of the light available to us as imperfect moral agents, and that freedom is actually good for the development of society and the individual. I also hope that readers of the book will begin to appreciate how fragile constitutional promises can be for religious minorities, and that we have learned as newcomers on the religious landscape that sometimes, even in a democracy with constitutional assurances, it's a hard struggle to actually win equal protection of the law and to find space to exercise new and even controversial religious beliefs. But that having learned from our own experience, we've actually become pretty good at recognizing and sympathizing and even standing up for other vulnerable populations who find themselves not so well protected in the law today around the world. Members of the Church's First Presidency and Quorum of the 12, along with other general officers, have actually had a lot to say about religious freedom in recent years. This book doesn't take the place of that current commentary. It just puts it in historical context by helping us see some of the story about how we got to the place we did as very articulate, principled, peaceable defenders of an important human right.